Short and sweet, just the way I like my heavyweight fights. Marcin Tybura ends this main event against Tai Tuivasa with 52 seconds left in round number 1. So let's go back and talk about what actually happened in this fight. Coming into this fight, Tybura was coming off of his knockout loss to Tom Aspinall, and he was trying to get back on track and regain a title as a heavyweight contender. Tai Tuivasa had lost 3 of his last 3 fights, dropping them to Cyril Gane, Sergey Pavlovich, and Alexander Volkov. The fight starts, and at first, both fighters are looking like they're trying to be real mixed martial artists. Tai Tuivasa is landing leg kicks. Marcin Tybura is trying to counter Tai's leg kicks with body shots. Eventually, Marcin Tybura clinches up with Tai, and we can see that Marcin Tybura's game plan is to get this clinch and then parlay that into a takedown and then ground and pound and grappling from there. Tybura gets this really tight overhook on Tai, holding him close to him, but Tai has his right hand free and he starts slamming elbows into Tybura's head. One good elbow there that cuts Tybura's scalp open, and then he lands another good elbow following it up. His third elbow misses because he just lands that one good elbow. Tybura really is like a firefighter, just forcing himself to run into the fire of Tai Tuivasa's flailing fists, and you can see how defensively minded he is as he's barreling into Tai Tuivasa. He has his left arm completely up and covering his head. He just chases Tai down. Tai Tuivasa throws some wild punches here and they just straight up miss. Again, in part to Tybura's defensive guard. Right hook misses, left hook just really has no hope of hitting, and Tybura's on the clinch again. Tai Tuivasa breaks away from the clinch, and he's really trying to just hurt Tybura here. He landed a few good elbows in the clinch earlier, and he just swings with a wild right hook, and you can see Tybura just sidesteps out of the way, and that right hook just has no hope in hell of landing. And this is emblematic of Tai Tuivasa's biggest problem, where as he's fighting higher up in the division, his punches just aren't landing as consistently as they were against the lower ranked guys, and that is just because guys higher up in the division can move better than the lower ranked guys. They can move their bodies out of the way of Tai Tuivasa's punches, and Tai Tuivasa really hasn't been working on his own footwork or trying to set up his big power shots at all, and so these strikes just simply aren't landing on his opponents. Another big swing and a miss from Tai Tuivasa here. Just a big right hand, not telegraphed at all. You can say maybe he's engaging in some hand fighting here, but it doesn't really matter. Tybura just lifts up his left hand, covering his face. So even if that did land on Tybura, it would have wobbled him, but I don't think it would have put him out. He just has this big slab of bone between his brain and Tai's fist. And he also just moves his head off to the side, and it completely misses. Tybura then tries to clinch with Tai, and you can see the extent of Tai's takedown defense, which is try to move away and push against Tybura. Good jab from Tybura here, and again, you can see just how defensive he was with his left hand just completely covering his face. This really just shows that Tai Tuivasa is not a complete mixed martial artist, where he goes for these giant swinging shots that have no hope of landing. What was he trying to do here? Tybura's face was way out of the range of this elbow, and you can see how much he overswings. If Tybura was a bit faster on his feet, he'd easily be able to take Tai's back here, although that doesn't seem to be much of a problem even later on in this fight. So how does Tybura actually close out this fight? Well, he punches Tai Tuivasa into the cage by just putting out a combination of long straight punches. Tai really doesn't have any counter striking ability. He gets hit with a jab there. Left hook misses, but Tai's still covering up from it. And then another right hand. Tai Tuivasa has started from essentially this monster sign with his left toes on the monster sign. And then with just a few punches, Tybura successfully backed Tai all the way up to the cage. Literally his heels and his ass are resting against the cage. There's nowhere else for him to retreat. He's just retreated in a straight line. He has no concept of footwork at all. And from there, Tai does a half-hearted little left hook, which Tybura just easily avoids, ducks underneath, grabs a double leg on Tai Tuivasa really in deep. Tai defends it for a while, but ultimately Marcin Tybura is able to just lift him out away from the cage and then turn the corner and take Tai down from there. And as bad as Tai Tuivasa's takedown defense and footwork is, it's still better than his ground game. So let's go over Tai Tuivasa's ground game, or lack thereof. So Marcin Tybura lands in a half guard position. Tai starts to do the right thing of scooting his butt back to get to the cage so he can kind of use the cage to stand up, but Tybura has his left arm. So as Tai Tuivasa stands up, Tybura is pulling his left arm, and that forces Tai Tuivasa to just turn his shoulders. So instead of addressing this grip on his left arm, he just tries to stand up anyway, and of course that means turning his back to Tybura, so Tybura easily takes his back from there. And spoiler alert, he holds his back position for the rest of the fight, which ends in 2 minutes. So Tybura has one hook in. He eventually gets the other hook in because Tai Tuivasa seemingly has no concept of grappling. From there, he's able to land ground and pound at will, and he eventually sinks in a choke. So he hits Tai with some good shots. Tai really is not defending himself well here. He has his arm up, but he's not able to improve his position at all, and he is just a fish out of water. So then Tybura is punching him. He sees that Tai's not defending his neck at all, and he sinks in the choke. It's 1minute 38 seconds as the choke goes in, and then Tai doesn't fight the hands at all. He just lays there trying to tough it out, and with 57 seconds on the clock, his arm goes limp and the ref calls the fight, and the official time is 52 seconds remaining. So great performance from Marcin Tybura. What can we say that we learned from this fight? I originally predicted Tai Tuivasa via a second round knockout. I thought Tybura would get him to the ground in round 1, but Tai would survive and then come back and knock Tybura out in round 2, but I was completely wrong. So what was I wrong about? Well, Tai Tuivasa did land some good shots on Tybura. He landed 2 good elbows, and I would say those were the total of his good shots that he landed on Tybura. Tybura has the better defense. He's still tough. I thought his grappling has improved. But I think that a lot of that can be contributed to the lack of preparedness of Tai Tuivasa. So let's take a look at their records. Tai Tuivasa has now lost 4 out of his last 4 fights to Ciryl, Sergey Pavlovich, Alexander Volkov, and Marcin Tybura. If we look at the guys he beat, these guys are no longer in the UFC. Stefan Struve, Harry Hunsucker, Greg Hardy, they are not in the UFC anymore. Augusto Sakai still is, although he is on his own losing streak, and Derek Lewis still is, although he is getting much older. And I would say Derek Lewis still out-technical Tai Tuivasa. This looked like a professional MMA fighter fighting an amateur fighter, fighting an amateur street brawler. And I'm not trying to be too harsh on Tai Tuivasa, but the fact is, his lack of ground game was embarrassingly apparent from him. He did not know what to do when Marcin Tybura took him down and was in half guard, and he definitely did not know what to do when Marcin Tybura had his back. He never even tried to fight Tybura's hands when Tybura was sinking into choke, and other than covering his head from Tybura's ground and pound, he could just laid there and did nothing. So this ground game obviously needs to improve. But what shocked me the most about this fight is the lack of a good striking game from Tai Tuivasa. He was over swinging so many times. He has no footwork. He has no concept of setting up his shots. And all he really has is a belief in his power and a willingness to throw big power shots. But just so many of them missed. And if he's ever going to be fighting guys with even a semblance of head movement or footwork, he's not going to be able to land good knockout shots on them. So Tai Tuivasa is currently 31 years old, and he's on a 4-fight losing streak. Heavyweights age slower than other fighters. Can Tai Tuivasa turn it around? He can. He has the power, but he needs dramatic improvements in his skill set. He cannot just be swinging wild punches at his opponents, tiring himself out, and leaving him out of position so they can easily clinch up with him and take him down. He needs to work on his takedown defense, his footwork, his striking fundamentals. I don't want to see haymakers from him anymore. I want to see clean boxing. Let that power carry through in your clean boxing. And ultimately, he just needs to get much better in fast areas of the MMA game. That was a great performance from Marcin Tybura, but we've seen this performance way too many times now against Tai Tuivasa, where his opponents just kind of have their way with him, let him punch himself out, and then from there, they just do whatever they want. So let me know what your thoughts are down below. Did Marcin Tybura just blow everyone's expectations out of the water, or did Tai Tuivasa show a regression in his game? This was a rough night of fights, I'm not gonna lie. This was the best fight by far, with actually both fighters doing something at least. Those were 2 good elbows that Tai landed. I hope that next week is better, but I am still not really hyped for it. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what you thought of the main event. Let me know what you thought of this fight night in the comments down below. Subscribe if you want more content like this, and everyone, have a great rest of your week.